In the beginning, before the stars burned their first light, before time had stretched its wings, there was only God, infinite, eternal, perfect. From the silence of eternity he spoke, and creation obeyed. His voice split the nothingness, and from his word came the heavens, radiant, pure, and filled with beings of spirit and flame. Among them, one would rise above the rest, not in pride, but in purpose. His name would echo through eternity, Michael, the one who stands for God. But before he bore his name, he was a spark within the divine will, a thought, a command, a destiny. When God created the host of heaven, every angel was made with intent, some to sing, others to serve, others to bring messages to humanity that was yet to exist. Yet Michael was different. He was not made to sing or to speak, but to stand for truth, to stand against the storm that would one day come. Light filled the heavens, and the great expanse of angels awoke to the sound of divine music. Seraphim burned with holiness, cherubim guarded knowledge, thrones upheld justice. And in the heart of this divine order, Michael opened his eyes for the first time. He saw glory, unfiltered, unending. He saw the face of the Almighty, veiled in light, yet closer than his own breath. And from that instant, Michael knew why he existed, not for himself, not for dominion, but for God, to serve him, to defend his name, to be the blade that separates light from darkness. God gave Michael strength, but not the strength of rage. It was the strength of conviction, the power to do what is right, even when surrounded by rebellion. His armor was faith, his sword was truth, his heart was loyal beyond measure. While other angels rejoiced in the music of creation, Michael stood in silence, his gaze fixed upon the throne. He understood what others did not, that creation, though perfect now, would one day be tested, and he would be the one to stand when that hour came. Lucifer, the most radiant of them all, sang louder than anyone. His beauty was beyond words, his light unmatched. But where Michael's eyes reflected worship, Lucifer's began to reflect himself. What began as admiration turned into pride. What began as light began to twist into shadow, and heaven trembled. Michael watched as whispers spread through the angelic ranks, whispers of self-rule, of freedom from divine order. Lucifer's music became a hymn to himself, and many followed him, captivated by his brilliance. The heavens that once echoed with harmony now thundered with conflict. And though no sword had yet been drawn, a war of wills was beginning, the greatest war ever to touch existence. Michael did not move in haste. He bowed before the throne and said only this, "My Lord, if darkness rises, let me stand in your name." And God answered not with words, but with power. From his light came the sword of heaven, burning with the truth of his word. He placed it in Michael's hands, not as a weapon of destruction, but as a symbol of divine authority. And the name Michael was spoken, meaning, "Who is like God?" It was not a title of pride, but of humility, a question that shattered the arrogance of Lucifer's rebellion. From that moment, Michael became the guardian of divine order. He would not rule. He would not command legions out of ambition. He would lead because he must, because heaven itself depended on it. As the stars began to take form and the universe expanded at God's command, Michael stood at the edge of eternity, watching creation unfold. He saw worlds swirl into existence, saw galaxies ignite with color and wonder. He saw the earth, still formless, waiting for the breath of life. He knew this world would one day become the battlefield between light and shadow. And he knew his mission was eternal, to defend what is holy, to guard what is pure, to fight not for glory, but for truth. There was peace again in heaven, but not the peace of ignorance. It was the peace before the storm. For somewhere deep within the light, a seed of pride still pulsed, waiting to awaken. And when it did, Michael would be ready, because he was not just an angel. He was the first warrior of God. Before the dawn of man, before the dust of earth was ever shaped into form, heaven itself trembled. Among the countless angels who once sang in harmony, one began to sing a different tune. Lucifer, the most radiant of them all, whose name meant light bringer, began to look not toward God, but toward himself. At first, it was only a whisper in his heart, a thought that perhaps he was more than just a servant of the Almighty. But that whisper grew louder. It echoed through the corridors of heaven, poisoning hearts that had never known doubt before. Lucifer's beauty was unmatched, his voice captivating, his power second only to God's will. And so many followed him, blinded by his radiance, deceived by his promise of freedom, of greatness, of being like God himself. In the midst of this growing rebellion, one stood firm, Michael. He saw what Lucifer could not. That pride leads only to ruin. He felt sorrow for his brother, for he too was once filled with light. But now that light had turned into fire, a fire that sought to consume heaven itself. God watched, not with surprise, but with sorrowful understanding. For even in heaven, free will existed, and with free will came the power to fall. Lucifer gathered his armies, mighty in number, glorious in appearance, yet hollow in spirit. They built their banners high, claiming the throne that was never theirs to claim. And then heaven shook. The silence broke with a sound like thunder, the cry of war. Lightning tore through the firmament as angels clashed in radiant fury. Light met light. Wings of glory struck wings of defiance. The heavens became a storm of divine power and corrupted beauty. In the center of it all stood Michael, sword drawn, eyes aflame with righteousness. His armor shone like molten gold. His voice echoed with the power of truth. He did not fight out of hatred, but out of love, to protect what was pure, to defend the name of God. Lucifer descended like a storm, his eyes burning with defiance. "Why should you serve?" he roared. "Why kneel before a God who limits your greatness?" Michael raised his sword, steady and calm. "Because there is none like him," he answered, "and I will not stand beside one who defies his glory." The two forces collided, light against light, will against will. Each strike shattered constellations, each blow echoed through eternity. Lucifer's army screamed in fury, Michael's army sang in defiance. For what seemed like an age, heaven burned with the fire of battle. And in that chaos, the truth was revealed. Not all light is pure. Lucifer's brilliance was nothing compared to the eternal light of God. At last, Michael raised his sword high, the sword of the Most High, and spoke the words that ended the rebellion. "Who is like God?" With that cry, the heavens answered. A wave of divine fire burst forth, casting Lucifer and his followers down. They fell like stars across the heavens, their light fading into darkness. Heaven grew silent once more. And there, amidst the quiet, Michael stood, weary but steadfast, his eyes filled not with triumph, but with sorrow. For even victory in heaven carried pain, for every fallen angel was once a brother. Then a voice came from the light. "Michael, my warrior, my protector, your name shall echo through eternity. For you have defended truth against pride and light against the shadow. Michael bowed his head. He did not smile nor boast. For the war in heaven was not won by power, but by obedience, by the unyielding will to stand for righteousness no matter the cost. And so the archangel became not just a warrior, but a symbol, the guardian of heaven, the defender of faith, the embodiment of loyalty. As peace returned to the realms above, the stars once again sang their hymns. But deep within the void below, the fallen stirred, their hatred burning brighter than ever, for though they had been cast down, they were not destroyed. And Michael knew. This war was not over. The stage of eternity had shifted. The next battle would not be fought in heaven, but on earth. From the very beginning, Michael was not only a protector, he was a symbol of divine authority and celestial justice. Unlike other angels, his purpose was not merely to serve, but to stand against darkness itself. In the book of Revelation, chapter 12, we see the culmination of this cosmic mission. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. This is not poetic imagery. It is a glimpse into the most ancient battle, a rebellion that split creation itself. Michael stands at the head of heaven's army, a commander not made of flesh and blood, but of holy fire. He does not wield a sword forged by human hands, but one shaped by divine will, burning with righteousness and truth. When Lucifer, the brightest of the angels, chose pride over obedience, Michael was the one who opposed him. He spoke the words that shook eternity. Who is like God? Michael. That question became his very name, his essence, his purpose. It was not a statement, but a declaration that no one can rise above the Creator. From that moment, Michael's role became eternal, the defender of God's sovereignty and the guardian of divine order. He was not created to dominate, but to protect, not to rule over others, but to ensure that no force, celestial or mortal, would ever threaten the harmony of creation again. In the Old Testament, we see Michael appear as the prince who stands for the children of God. In Daniel 10, he fights against the prince of Persia, a demonic ruler opposing God's plan. Daniel's vision shows us something profound, that behind the rise and fall of nations, there are spiritual powers at work. And Michael stands in the invisible realm, guarding Israel, shielding the faithful, ensuring that God's promises are fulfilled through time. But why was Michael chosen for this task? Why not Gabriel or another angel of light? Because Michael embodies the perfect balance between mercy and judgment. Where Gabriel brings messages of hope, Michael brings action, decisive, unflinching, unstoppable justice. He is the sword of God's command, the silent watcher over humanity's fragile story. And though unseen, his presence echoes through centuries of faith, warfare, and redemption. In Jewish tradition, Michael is the advocate of Israel, standing in heaven to defend God's people against accusation. In Christian faith, he becomes the protector of the church, a warrior of light, battling against the forces of evil that seek to destroy souls. And in both traditions, his power is not his own. It flows from the one who created him. Michael does not act for glory, he acts for truth. He fights not out of hatred for darkness, but out of love for light. His battle cry is not vengeance, it is faithfulness. Many theologians believe that Michael's creation represents a principle woven into the very structure of the universe, that goodness must always defend itself, that divine order requires a guardian, that love must have courage standing beside it. From the fall of Lucifer to the final days foretold in Revelation, Michael's mission never changes. He fights, not just once, not just in heaven, but through every age. Each time humanity faces spiritual danger, Michael's shadow rises in the unseen world. Each time evil grows bold, his sword burns brighter. Even today, believers across the world invoke his protection. Saint Michael, defend us in battle. These are not empty words. They are a cry from the human soul, reaching toward the eternal defender. But beyond religion, beyond dogma, Michael's story speaks to something deep within us. The desire to stand when others fall, to protect what is sacred even when the world grows dark, to be loyal when all others betray. That is what makes him more than a legend. He is a reflection of the divine strength placed within every soul. Perhaps this is why God created him, not only as a heavenly warrior, but as a mirror for humanity. Through Michael, we glimpse what it means to live with purpose, conviction, and faith, to fight without hatred, to protect without pride, to serve without fear. Michael reminds us that strength is not found in power, but in obedience to what is right. He stands as proof that courage is not born from rage, but from love, and that the ultimate victory of heaven is not destruction, but peace restored. When you imagine Michael, wings unfurled, eyes burning like stars, sword raised before the dragon, you are not just seeing an angel. You are witnessing the eternal triumph of good over evil. You are witnessing the truth that no darkness can stand against divine light. That is why God created Michael, because even in perfection there must be guardianship. Even in heaven, there must be a warrior who will always answer the question, who is like God? When we look deeper into the story of Archangel Michael, we begin to see that his mission was not only about heavenly battles, it was about protection, justice, and love. Throughout the Bible, Michael stands as the eternal guardian of God's people. His role reaches beyond the spiritual realm. It touches the very heart of creation's struggle between light and darkness. In the book of Daniel, Michael is called the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. This is not a symbolic phrase. It is a declaration of purpose. Michael was chosen to guard humanity, not because God could not protect his people himself, but because Michael's existence represents divine order in motion, the act of obedience turned into protection, the living embodiment of heavenly law. Imagine the unseen world around us, forces of light and forces of darkness constantly at war. Most of humanity never notices this battle, but Scripture tells us that Michael and his angels are always present, holding the line so that evil cannot consume the world entirely. Every time a believer prays for protection, every time someone resists temptation or fear, Michael's influence is felt, not as a physical presence, but as the echo of God's authority working through the unseen. There are moments in history where the divine seems distant, wars, despair, corruption. But even in those moments, Michael's name is whispered through time as the one who stands when all others fall. His name means, who is like God? Not a question of curiosity, but a cry of defiance against pride and rebellion. Lucifer sought equality with God. Michael answered not with argument, but with worship. That is the true essence of Michael's strength. He wins not through power, but through surrender to divine will. When we read Revelation 12, we witness the cosmic war, Michael and his angels fighting the dragon and casting him out of heaven. That victory echoes through all creation. It was not just about casting down Satan. It was a declaration that rebellion has no place in the kingdom of light. Michael's sword is not only a weapon, it's a symbol of truth cutting through deception. But what many forget is that Michael's mission did not end with that victory. He continues to fight, not in the clouds above, but in the hearts of believers below. Each act of faith, each prayer said in courage, becomes part of his battlefield. Every time someone chooses righteousness over evil, they stand beside Michael in that ancient war between light and darkness. And even now, Michael is described as the chief prince, not only a warrior, but also a leader among angels. He guards the nations, stands for justice, and ensures that the plans of the wicked cannot fully destroy what God has built. It is said that in the end times Michael will rise again, not in silence, but with the cry of victory that announces the return of the Lord. Think about it. When Gabriel delivers the messages of hope, Michael brings the power to fulfill them. They are two sides of divine action, word and deed, message and might. Michael's presence ensures that the story of salvation is not only spoken, but protected. Across centuries, countless people have prayed to God for help in moments of fear. And though unseen, Michael has been at work, standing guard at the edge of battle, defending the faithful, holding back the tide of destruction. He is not worshipped, he is honored as the perfect example of obedience. He does not act from pride, but from divine love. In the darkest moments of the human soul, when it feels like evil is winning, Michael's role reminds us that no darkness lasts forever. His story teaches that faith and humility defeat arrogance and rebellion. That surrender to God's will is the highest form of strength. From the dawn of time, Michael has stood as a reminder that the universe is not chaos. It is order under the hand of a righteous Creator. When he leads the heavenly hosts, he doesn't fight for personal glory, but for the preservation of God's design. He is not a hero born of ambition, but of submission. And that is why God created him, not as an equal, but as a reflection of his power, his justice, and his love in action. Michael represents what creation is meant to be, perfect harmony with the will of God. In the end, the victory is already written. The book of Revelation makes it clear, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Michael's battle is the continuation of that same truth, that evil falls and light endures. When the final trumpet sounds and heaven opens once more, Michael will stand again at the front lines, the protector of God's people, the defender of the faithful, the eternal guardian of divine order. And until that day comes, his presence is felt in every prayer, every act of courage, and every moment when faith overcomes fear. Because through Michael, God reminds us, no matter how fierce the storm, light always wins. From the dawn of creation to the final revelation, Archangel Michael stands as the eternal defender of God's kingdom. His mission was never about power, but about obedience, the purest form of love expressed through unwavering faith. When God spoke, Michael listened. When darkness rose, he fought. When humanity fell, he guarded. And when hope seemed lost, he reminded all creation that light cannot be destroyed. Michael was not created as a ruler, but as a protector, the heavenly warrior who carries the divine authority to preserve balance in both heaven and earth. He is called the Prince who stands for the children of your people, as written in the book of Daniel. His existence is a message that God's justice always comes with mercy, and his strength always serves his love. When Lucifer rebelled, Michael did not fight for pride, but for truth. His sword was not forged for conquest, but for righteousness. That is why he was chosen, not because he was the strongest, but because he was the most faithful. Every swing of his sword carried the echo of divine command, a declaration that the authority of God cannot be challenged. After the fall of Satan, Michael's purpose did not end. He became the watchful guardian of the faithful, the silent protector who stands between humanity and unseen evil. It is said that when nations tremble and chaos rises, Michael moves unseen, turning the tide, guiding leaders, and protecting those who call upon the name of God. Through the centuries, he has been the answer to countless prayers. Soldiers on the battlefield, prophets in despair, and believers in suffering have all called his name and felt the presence of peace. He is not worshipped, for he is not divine, but through him we see what perfect obedience to God looks like. In the New Testament, Michael's role continues as he fights again in Revelation. The heavens open, the trumpet sounds, and the armies of light assemble. Michael leads the host of angels against the dragon and his legions. In that battle, the true nature of divine justice is revealed, not vengeance, but restoration. Michael casts the dragon down, and the heavens resound with triumph. But even in victory, Michael bows before the throne of God. His loyalty never wavers. His power never blinds him. He knows that all glory belongs to the Creator alone. Through his humility, he teaches that strength without submission is rebellion, and that even the mightiest beings kneel before the will of God. Today, the spirit of Michael's mission continues. He remains the unseen guardian, standing between light and darkness. Every prayer for protection, every cry for deliverance echoes through eternity. And Michael listens, not as a god, but as a servant of God. He reminds us that the greatest battles are not fought with swords, but with faith. The real war is not in the skies above, but in the hearts of men, between temptation and truth, despair and hope. Each of us faces our own dragon. Each of us must stand for light when darkness calls. And in those moments, Michael is there, a whisper of courage, a shield of faith, a reminder that we are never alone. When you feel weak, remember him. When fear surrounds you, call upon God and trust that his angels stand ready. Just as Michael defended heaven, so will God defend you. His promise has never failed, and his kingdom will never fall. The story of Michael is not only about the war in heaven, it's about the victory of obedience, the beauty of humility, and the power of divine purpose. He was created not to be adored, but to inspire. His wings remind us that service is higher than status, and that glory belongs only to God. And as Revelation foretells, when the final trumpet sounds, Michael will rise again, not as a conqueror seeking fame, but as the guardian of God's children. The heavens will shake, evil will fall, and peace will reign forever. So when you finish watching this story, take a moment to reflect. Michael's victory was not his own. It was God's victory through him. And just like Michael, you too can become a warrior of light in your own life by standing firm in faith, by choosing truth over fear, by walking humbly with your Creator. If you believe that God still sends his angels to watch over us, write a short prayer in the comments. Let the comments section become a wall of light, a place where faith meets faith. where courage is shared, and where the name of God is glorified. Because even now the battle continues, not in heaven, but within every heart that chooses to stand for the light.